Okay, brother, I'm going to share one of my favorite recipes with you. This is garlic basil chicken in tomato and butter sauce. Your ingredients are going to be, I don't know, however many tomatoes you really want with about this much chicken. I used, I think like 7 Roma tomatoes. Your angel hair pasta, a handful of fresh basil cut into ribbons. I use lots of garlic. That's about 4 cloves of garlic, salt, pepper, olive oil, at least a half a stick of butter. I've got a little more because I have a lot of chicken. Of course, have your water ready to boil and your favorite happy skillet. We're going to start by putting salt and pepper good on both sides of the chicken. You can be friendly with the salt and pepper. A lot of it's going to cook off and stick in the bottom of the pan and help give your sauce that flavor anyway. So be liberal. I'm going to flip that over and do the other side. You're probably wondering why I have saran wrap on my plate. That's because I hate doing dishes. And I'm going to have to take this chicken out of the pan after I cook it and let it rest. So I can simply pull the saran wrap off of that plate. So I'm not putting cooked meat on the same plate that raw meat was on. I'm going to put at least 1/4 cup of oil in my pan. I will coat the bottom nicely. Some of that will absorb into the chicken. Some will stay for our sauce. Best way that you can tell that you got your oil to the right temperature is put a little splash of water in there. And if it bubbles up like that, well, you're set. So, I don't want to crowd the pan. So we might have to do this in 2 batches. That's pounded down to about 1 inch in thickness so it'll cook nice and even and it won't dry out. I'm going to flip these over in a few minutes and just make sure they're just done through. And we'll take them off the heat. You might feel like your chicken is starting to stick, which it is, but it's not going to stay that way. When it's finished, it'll start to release from the pan on its own, and that's when you know that it's ready to flip. So you'll see these starting to get a little white around the edges. That means they're probably pretty close to done on that side. Instead of sticking, they're coming up real easy. I'm going to flip those over. There's a nice even browning on those because they are pounded flat. Give them some time on that side. I'm going to pull the saran wrap off of my plate here. Now I've got a nice clean plate to put my chicken on when it's done cooking. I've got a nice even browning on both sides of the chicken. So I'm going to pull that off. Done sticking because it's nice and browned up. And I'm going to finish up our other 3 pieces and we'll move on to our sauce. And through the magic of the pause button on the video of my smartphone, these pieces of chicken are finished. Very important. We're going to put tomatoes in here. So you've got to take the oil off of the heat. If you don't, let it cool for a couple minutes, you will have a major splatter fest. I'm going to cover these back up. I'm letting those rest on top of the pot of water that I'm working on a boil, because it'll make the water boil faster and keep the chicken warm. So our oil is cooled down. I'm going to put it back on medium heat and dump in the Roma tomatoes. And we're going to cook these down until it's like a chunky sauce. The water is going to scrape up all that gooey stuck goodness from the bottom of the pan. And that flavor is also going to work into our sauce. So, through the magic of the pause button, I'm going to let this go ahead and cook down. And I'll be right back. Once this starts to bubble up and get happy, I'm going to dump my garlic in. You don't have to do this till the end, but I really like that mingled garlic flavor in the sauce. It makes me happy. I'm going to put a little bit more salt because, you know, I'm so healthy. And I'm going to put a little bit more pepper because pepper is awesome. This is starting to cook down to where it's getting to a chunky sauce. I'm just going to let it cook down a little bit more. And we can put our butter and our chicken back in and let those flavors mingle until the pasta's ready. You can see a lot of the liquid is cooked out of the tomatoes, all nice and bubbly through the sauce. This is the time when we can stick our butter in there. And we're just gonna melt this right into the sauce. With a little more magic, the butter's melted in. We're going to turn this down to simmer and put our chicken back in there so it can soak up the flavor. Don't waste those good juices. Our chicken stayed warm, our water's coming to a boil, and we are just going to push this back off the heat a little bit. Wait for our pasta. This is the time to salt your water. I put quite a bit in there because it's the only time that you're going to get to actually flavor your pasta noodles. And putting the salt in at that time keeps it from sticking or burning to the bottom. We'll let that go until it's just, I don't know, al dente if you like it that way. But yeah. Our chicken is mingling in the sauce really well. I'm going to give this a stir quick so it doesn't stick to the bottom. Set a timer. I'm going to take my fresh basil as my pasta's finishing up, and I'm going to sprinkle that around and stir that in so that can have a minute to mingle. Fresh basil is pretty strong, pungent, so I didn't want to put it in here while it was cooking. Wish you could smell it. If you remember, this is how Mom used to check to see if the noodles are done. Microwave. And if it sticks, it's done. Good job, Rena. Say hi to Uncle Jesse. Put some pasta on the plate. Chicken. Put a little bit of this. Top it off with a little bit of fresh parmesan and hand it to the piggy. Enjoy!